from the 37th parallel on America's haunted highway, it's Pixelated Paranormal, your guide to the unusual and the strange. Welcome, everybody, to Pixelated Paranormal, episode 20. We've been doing this stuff for 20 times.
And if you stuck around this long, keep on coming back.
And that means we've probably been doing this for about almost a year now.
We're coming up close, man. We're coming up close. I think in May will be our 1 year anniversary. Total.
How the hell are we already? It's January. I mean, 20 episodes. We should have 6 more would be considered a year.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
So, yeah.
Well, Preston and I have done a couple specials too, so I mean, you got to throw those in there too. So.
Okay.
Yes, sir. 1 or 2 of those. So anyway, hey guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for being here for all 20 installations of this kooky madness, and here's to 100 more. Yeah. So how's everybody been?
I'm all right. It's Saturday coming up, but we won't be, it'll be already late by the time this goes up, but Saturday is International Lego Day, so I've got that to look forward to.
Hell yeah.
Nerd.
There's a big International Beer Day coming up, too. Could you make me a beer out of Legos?
That would probably taste terrible. Almost like vagina beer.
Have you tried vagina beer?
You've never had it?
No.
Well, then don't knock until you try it.
I do not want to make beer from a yeast infection. I'm just saying that's gross.
I think it's pre-infection, if I remember right.
Yeah, it's just the
infection
culture.
Confection. Yeah,
there's a lot of cultures I don't get into.
Naysayer. I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that one. Most definitely. Preston, how have you been?
I've been good. The lady and I adopted a dog and added it to her
This already
family.
sounds like this is a bad idea from the stories you're telling.
No.
The way you call her the lady, that also sounds bad too. It's not 1954.
Well, okay, so my
girlfriend and I.
Well, yeah, my lady and I, my woman.
My little darling and I pokeyed on up to the Humane Society on a horse and buggy while she made me dinner in the back of the coach.
And pretty much, yeah. And we adopted a dog. No, it's just that, this is her first night in the house. And
your girlfriend? What?
No, the dog, and she was dead asleep.
You really shouldn't call your lady friend a dog.
Ouch!
Yeah, come on, Preston.
This is just going downhill quick. Anyways, I scared the shit out of her, and she just got startled, and then realized that it was me, and then she calmed down. So
there you go. Well, it's the first night in the new house. She'll be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of dog is it?
It's a American bulldog.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Does she get along pretty well with old Brucey boy?
Yeah, they're cuddling on the couch right now. So
excellent. Well, good news. Well, I
don't know, that one picture you sent earlier made it look like Bruce is like, what the hell is this? Why'd you bring this here? Why she got my Chewbacca?
Yeah, that's funny. Well, in my world, Shayla and I have decided to join a new, I don't know what you want to call it, a gym or a fitness facility, but yeah, we're stoked for that. We're starting a pretty awesome journey with Go Time training, so we couldn't.
Are they allowing you to have beer in your diet?
I doubt it. That seems counterproductive.
Yeah, get rid of it.
Get rid of it. No, I'm trying to get rid of the beer gut. That's the problem.
Yeah,
that's the problem. Yes, Sunday might be the last time I drink beer for a very long time. So.
Ooh,
I don't believe it.
Let's not talk about that.
Right? You and Rob are both saying let's not talk about that for 2 different reasons. Well, hey, I guess today's show is going to be finally getting to the good stuff, in my opinion. We've been wanting to do this for a while, and I know Steven and some other listeners are chomping at the bits. So we're going to do alien stuff. We're going to start making our way into alien stuff. I'm pretty excited. So
for at least a couple episodes.
Yeah, I would hope. Yeah, I'd like to just keep on going. But first, I almost forgot. I was going to do a couple shout-outs to some listeners. So I want to give a little shout out to a guy named Joe. I'd give you more information, but I don't like to say last names. Don't know where he's from, but he reached out to us about some technical difficulties we were having on, I think, Google a while back. So Joe, thanks a lot, man. I hope it got fixed. If it didn't, please make sure, I mean, obviously, if you're still listening, you went through another avenue to hear us. But yeah, thanks for giving us that heads up, and hopefully it worked its way out.
Nice.
And then also a hearty shout out to Jill and the St. Croix Paranormal team. I hope I pronounced that right, in Minnesota. Jill reached out, gave us a like, and shared her paranormal investigation group on our Facebook page. Originally, I thought it was just a story, so I replied back, thanks, I'll give it a read and we'll feature it. But I need to do some deeper reading, because apparently it was not just a story about a haunted hotel. So, yeah, big shout out to the St. Croix Paranormal in Minnesota. And again, I hope it's called St. Croix. If not, I'm an asshole. So there we go. And then also a little shout out to my cousin. She posted some stuff on Facebook about a doctor removing some alien implants that we're going to get into a little bit later. And just want to say thanks. You really saved my keister, because I had nothing to talk about until I read that, watched that video, and it gave me a whole slew of stuff to talk about. So this episode goes out to you. So, Preston, what do you have for news?
So I came across this one article, and when I found this article, I'm like, dear God, this is gold. So this is the only article that I just stopped after I found this. So let's talk about, this is from the Mirror UK. It is titled, Spiritual Healer Cures Blindness by Licking Patient's Eyeballs After Sterilizing Mouth with Booze.
Okay, good. Glad she is practicing.
Now we know why he wanted to talk about this.
An elderly
Right.
spiritual healer claims that she can cure blindness by licking patients' eyeballs, and now charges them for the privilege. Her powers are so revered that she believes locals will cut out her tongue when she dies, so they can continue to harness its alleged powers. In rural Bosnia and Herzegovina, there you go, 80-year-old
Nailed it.
Hava Celebic, or Nana Hava, as she is known locally, claims to be the only person in the world who can heal with her tongue. The frail old woman uses her tongue to remove pieces of lead, iron, coal, sawdust, glass, and other ailments from eyeballs after sterilizing her mouth with alcohol. Patients
Maybe
will
she can
raise
cure my fucking eyesight problems.
Yeah. let's call her up. Patients will raise their eyelids for Nana Hava to begin licking and search for a foreign body. Hava said, I learned this from a woman who was also called Hava. Unfortunately, I cannot pass this to my descendants because my children are too disgusted to put their tongue on someone else's eye.
I think I know what Hava's last name is.
What's that?
Eye infection.
Ooh, I have an eye infection. I've been told that people will cut out my tongue when I die so the village can continue to treat people.
Some tells me
Nana
that
Hava-
won't work.
Nana
That dries
Hava-
out, right?
What's that?
I said it would dry out, right? I'm pretty sure at that point it's like using a dry sponge.
Yeah. Nana
still.
Hava claims to have cured over 5,000 people of many nationalities, from Americans to Russians.
Damn.
Hava said there are a lot of those that modern medicine could not help. They come to me out of the hospital with swollen eyes, and I clear them and remove the speck. I don't charge licking for those who are not employed and have no money, but my service fee normally costs around 10 euros. There you go.
Not bad for a...
So for 10 euros, Rob, we can fix your eyeballs by having some crusty old lady lick
yeah,
them.
it's not bad.
And then this one picture, she's
I have
really
lost
getting up on that eyeball.
Sound?
So I want to know what happens when she says she can remove debris from the eye, including glass and pieces of metal. So she just like swallows it, she like spit it out.
I'm sure she hawks it out after that, but I don't know, man. I don't want someone licking on my eyeball.
Yeah, that's pretty gross. I'm not gonna lie.
I knew a guy who was into that, in all honesty, and it grossed me out.
He liked to lick eyeballs?
Yep.
That is fucking disgusting.
Yep. And you know who you are. If you're listening, you know who you are. As he squirms in his chair and looks over his shoulder. Well, from there, Rob, why don't you take it away?
So I came across a story about a virtual reality using it to reduce the fear of death. So there was a research scientist that decided he wanted to try a program for helping people in virtual reality dealing with the out-of-body experience. So basically what he did is he set up a room where half the participants were in a room, or everybody was in the room, and they had a virtual reality headset on, and basically they would show the screen, and then they would have like a ball bouncing on the foot, and they would have haptic feedback so that they would feel the ball on the foot as well. And then halfway through the experiment, the body would start to raise up, and so you'd feel like you're actually looking over your body as you died in an out-of-body experience, and you're looking down on your body. And then half the patients, they took the ball effect away so you couldn't feel it, and then the other half, they just kept the feeling of it popping them on the foot. So even though they were raising up from their body, they could still see the ball bounce onto the foot in the virtual reality, and they could still feel it. And then they gave them a quiz afterwards, and they found out that the people that didn't have the haptic feedback answered more optimistically about life after death and dying, as the other group showed that they still had the same type of fear. So just the way that they're using virtual reality to try out that. I mean, it's hard to say if that is, you know, they're not going out and killing themselves and bringing them back to see if they're still fear death, but they're saying that just by this this personality quiz or whatever, they determined that they have a reduced fear of death, which is kind of interesting. And and there's going to be probably more studies on that, but they're saying that maybe virtual reality can relieve your fear of death. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that just seems kind of silly? Because I don't know, man. Because I mean, they're not. It's just weird. I don't know, because they're not killing. They're not killing them and bringing them back or anything like that.
Right.
So it's just kind of be weird that the virtual reality would actually have any effect on that.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy into that. I mean, I would assume that if I were to have a near-death experience and I went to the other side and, I found myself next to a mountain and I climbed the mountain, and then when I got to the top of the mountain, I found this nice little hut, and this old guy that looked like like an old nasty Jesus karate chopped me in the chest, and I woke back up in my body and I had that experience, then I wouldn't fear death anymore. But that, being inside a fucking video game, probably not going to work for me.
Right.
That was oddly specific.
That was actually a story from a near-death experience book that I
was going to say, you've practiced this or thought it out before.
Yeah, this lady climbed a mountain, and when she got to the top of it, she knocked on the door of this hut, and out walked this old man that she's like, with the beard. She was like, man, maybe this is Jesus. He's like, what the fuck are you doing here? She's like, I don't know. He's like, it's not your time. And then,
are you sure it wasn't your D&D character?
Yeah, and then just drop kicked her in the chest, and then she woke back up in her body.
I do know that virtual reality can make Resident Evil 7 scarier.
Yeah, how's that?
Because oh my god, there were times in that game that I was like fucking breathing heavy because I was like, oh god, this is scary. Like at one point, and I don't think this is really a spoiler because it doesn't. It could happen to you and it may not happen to you, but I had escaped the guy that's trying to kill me, and I kind of lured him into another room and then closed the door behind it, so it got his attention. So then I circled around the other door of that room and came out, and he opened up the other door looking for me. And I was like, okay, cool. So I was crouched down, so I slowly walked behind him, and I was like, oh yeah, that worked. And so I got to the hallway. I'm like, well, if I started running now, he wouldn't be able to catch me. So I took off running. All of a sudden, he fucking threw his hammer through the freaking wall.
Oh, damn.
Right in front of me and busted through the damn wall and said, there you are, Ethan. And I'm like, oh, fuck this. I about cried. I took off running the other direction trying to get away from him. It was scary. It was very scary.
I wish I was a fly on the wall watching you play that.
Well, you didn't have to be a fly on the wall because you could have watched me stream it on Facebook the other night.
Damn. Is the video on there still, or did it save it?
Well, the video's on Twitch right now, but you can't see my face or anything, but you can hear me scream.
Yeah? Oh, that's
I actually
good.
didn't record that. That one was from last night where he busted through the wall, but I had some freak out moments the night before as well, so yeah.
That's awesome. I think that VR could be really utilized in a lot more ways than just video gaming. I think that, honestly, You know, the old cure for being arachnophobic was to hold a tarantula or a spider in like a clear Tupperware on your hand and let it crawl around. So if you could do that now in a secure setting of, you know, virtual reality, you're not going to run the risk of killing that spider, and B, it's going to be a safe zone to where it's not really going to hurt you. And as real as VR is, I mean, I don't think we have to argue the fact of, well, it's a real spider, so it's real danger versus just make believe. Like, I've been in some old timey VR stuff, like at the fair, and it's real enough. So if it's as real as Rob's saying it is, I think it stands a pretty good chance to be a really cool tool to utilize.
Well, I can also say that I am still terrified of heights, even after playing video games where I'm swinging above empty space. So I don't think it's going to be that
well.
That
but
close.
I mean, your PlayStation isn't, you know, running like a psychology program either. I'm sure like you swinging from skyscraper to skyscraper is probably a bit different than, you know, a nice calm meditative state and somebody kind of guiding you through the steps of overcoming your fear too.
I don't know. That got a little too deep for me.
Do you think that this could actually be a tool to utilize for out of body experiences? Like, you know, if they're guiding you through this fake out of body experience, if your mind believes it's real enough that you can actually, you know, project yourself out of your body while you're going through this fake reality.
I mean, maybe. I mean, if you had somebody that could teach you how to do that, and you were like had this experience where maybe your mind got used to the idea, because I think a lot of times one of the biggest barriers to out of body experiences probably is just the fear of disconnecting from yourself, and maybe this could help with that.
That's very true.
It seems like to me this is really weird that they used it for out of body experience for death, when I think what Preston is saying is actually a better use for this.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, we're barely scraping the tip of the iceberg, man. We're barely like melting the first snowflake.
My problem is, like, with all the different ghost hunting stuff that I've done, I think that has helped me overcome this fear of death, because religion as a whole has never really answered these questions for me, and that's kind of spawned me to want to go out there and like try to find these answers. So then with all the different ghost stuff that I've encountered, like, for me, that's relieved my fear of death. But I can see a society that's obsessed with technology where, you know, we have all these like young kids who have their, you know, faces immersed in their phones all the time, who, you know, use technology for everything, that, you know, this could possibly be a tool for them.
Yeah.
But for me, in my mindset, I don't think it would work. I think I would use it to, you know, to help me just have an out of body experience and to meditate, to kind of relax my mind so that I could just float and go do shit.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Alrighty, and now I also have a Rob's Robot story.
Oh.
Cue the sound effects.
Coming at you from the 37th parallel, from the basement of a mad scientist, it's more fantastical tales of robots.
Okay, so I came across this robot story, and the robots are pretty scarce this week, but at least it doesn't have anything to do with sex robots, so we're moving on to a new chapter here.
We can always spin it that way, baby.
But some guy has developed a robot skin that helps sense warm bodies. And they said here, it's almost the creepiest thing ever. Robot skin senses warm bodies like a snake locating nearby prey. So if you weren't already afraid of the robot uprising, you know, this doesn't really,
it's the predators of robots.
Yeah, right. So basically there's a flexible, transparent coating that this film that they put over people, and basically it's almost like they were developing it to give a personal space to humans and stuff, so robots could wear this film. They would sense heat through this film, and so they'd say, oh, there's somebody there, so not to get too close. But they're also saying they can use this to, it says basically it relies on currents of ion rather than electrons to detect temperature variations.
Yeah.
Just like natural membranes used by a snake. And they said, you know, so you got that idea, but also they're saying this could be used to help find people still alive in like after earthquakes collapse on people and stuff like that. So the body would be able, the robot would be able to discern those differences in temperature, and so they'd be like, oh, there's somebody there, or digging them out of avalanches. But he says that the guy in Switzerland says Dr. Raphael Di Giacomo, who led the research. This could help machines navigate crowded areas without hitting people, or search and rescue robots locating humans and rubble and smoke-filled rooms. It could also help to avoid damage and be more helpful to people. A robotic system might need to know if a cup of tea is too hot to hand over, for example. So there's a lot of applications for this. Also, when the robot uprising happens, they can sense our body heat. There will be nowhere to hide, and we will all be murdered. So
I was going to say you could easily apply that to like drone technology.
Yep. Very true.
Man. Yeah.
But
That's
just
right.
like in Predator, Rob, we can spread mud across our body, and we can hide from their heat-seeking abilities.
And surprisingly enough, if you stick around long enough, folks, that's not the only story about spreading mud on your body we're going to talk about today.
All right. So there you go. There's your robot story for this week, this episode.
Thanks, Rob. Oh, man. Well, I suppose if we're done with the news, we can go ahead and get into the thick of it. And Rob, I'll let you lead the way with that.
So I guess about a week ago, the CIA finally declassified tons of hundreds of thousands of pages of information from a oh man, my damn browser's locked up on this. Luckily I know most of the story. CIA released all these files online finally, and it's kind of interesting how this happened, because there was a group called Muckrock that's been trying to get these declassified files revealed. The files have actually been out there, most of them, since like 1994, since the Freedom of Information Act. But to get to them, you had to go to Washington, D.C. during certain times of the day, and these files would be opened. And so what Muckrock did is they put out a crowdfunding to see if they get people to crowdfund this, for basically having a guy go there every day, have them, because what you could do is go there and request these files to be printed out for you. And so that's what he would do every day, is he would just go pull files and make people, because of the Freedom of Information Act, actually have to print those out. And he said the whole idea with this was to force the government to say, hey, we need to put these files out online because it's costing us a fortune to do this.
Right.
And this guy's going to keep doing it every day because he's getting crowdfunded. So eventually that's what happened. They broke down this past December and said, fine, we'll put all the files up.
Yeah.
And so that's what they did. Now, there's all kinds of interesting things I looked into here. Even tonight on break, I looked at a couple of the files, and I found some really interesting stuff. But one of the biggest things they talked about was the Project Stargate. Now, this is actually CIA files. This is not a joke. So CIA was very interested in the remote viewing, and they had psychic Uri Geller. Now, Uri Geller is known for bending spoons and such like that. He's also a really well-known psychic. And however, he went with the government, and they actually tested his abilities, and they were so convinced by his abilities that they actually started. He's the reason why we had Stargate and the whole remote viewing and psychic soldiers and stuff programs started. Well, not so much psychic soldiers, they don't get into that. But in like 1989, they tested him, and basically they would put him in a room, and he would have to, they have a guy outside the room who would say, they would tell him to think of something. And then they would have Uri Geller draw a picture. And, you know, he drew, like, one time the guy was thinking of grapes. And sure enough, Uri Geller drew grapes. They had him stare at, like, pictures of, like, they had the guy outside the room. He would stare at pictures of things, too, and try to send that image to Uri Geller. And that also worked. He was able to look at, like, a picture drawn of, like the galaxy, our galaxy, and Uri Geller drew it. In fact, even more detailed than what the guy was saying.
Oh, wow.
Was sending him the message, but it happened more than 50% of the time, and it got the government really interested in this. And the government says they stopped doing this in 95, which we all know. If the government says they stopped doing something, they never stop doing it. But another thing that they talked about, though, in these files, is I actually started reading some of the files. They were doing some of the remote viewing, and what they would do is they were actually using this remote viewing to spy on boats in the ocean that were possibly carrying drugs.
Yeah, you know what? I heard that before on a whole different documentary.
So they one guy I was reading they have the files released, and it's like he's like, okay, this boat is here, and the guy would give the coordinates where the boat was at, and it had no drugs on it at the time. However, it had 2 more stops that they were going to make according to the shipping manifest or whatever that he was able to look at, I guess, in the boat. That's pretty cool, And he said also one boat had cocaine. That was the only drug he found on board. He could tell them exactly where on the boat the cocaine was at. And even described the area that the cocaine was in. Like, he said you could see it from on deck. You could see through the wire in the, not wire, but the little grate. You could see it behind some boxes. You could see where the whatever the container was holding the cocaine was at. Now, they didn't go into the details of saying, hey, we went and confiscated this boat. It's almost like that was a whole separate thing. Maybe the DEA got contacted about that. We don't know what happened after that or if this is even true. But to me, it seems like it would have stopped happening. They would have stopped using it if it wasn't accurate enough to get things. Because this was like 1989, and they continued this till 95, according to them. So, also, there was another story I read, or I actually watched a little bit of an interview today, where they had alien craft seen in the Congo around a uranium mine, and they had started studying this flying saucer, and they described your normal flying saucer, metallic. A guy in an aircraft tried to chase it down. They couldn't catch it. It was very fast, and it dropped to like really close to the trees and then shoot off. They said what was cool about it, though, is they talked about around the actual edge of the spacecraft. He said there were flames shooting out of it. So it almost looked like to him like it was some kind of man-made craft. So we don't know if it was something that somebody had created or if it was an alien. Because almost when you think about flames, you don't really think about aliens. You think of like lights and stuff, but never flames shooting out of it. But they even had a diagram that the guy that seen this thing described it and how he thought it worked. And it was like really detailed information. I mean, I don't remember all of it, but there's lots. That's just the tip of the iceberg of what's in here. And there's no telling what's in here.
Did you come across anything about Space Marines?
No, I haven't looked into that. That's what Uri Geller had said before about the was that the Deep Space Project or whatever?
Well, Uri Geller, he got in contact with another like UFO researcher, and there was this entity that was coming across in these sessions where like each one of these psychics would get possessed. And supposedly, and there's a recording of it that you can look up where these entities came across and they said, "We are the 9."
Oh, yeah.
And they hacked a radio. They hacked like a TV station and hijacked a broadcast back in the 70s in Great Britain. And at the time, like Great Britain had these fail safes in place to where like that broadcast shouldn't have been able to be hijacked. But somehow it was, and so they just kind of scoffed it off as saying that it was like, some type of student or, somebody in like the CIA, but it wasn't aliens, but they couldn't tell you how it got hijacked. But the reason why I bring up Space Marines is there was a congressional hearing that was put on by MUFON like a year or two ago, and they had about 6 or 7 senators, and they in the hearing, one of the MUFON leaders brought up that President Bush had mentioned that this particular general was going to be the head of a Space Marine program, and they had outlined like all these things that they were going to do, and then 9/11 had happened, and all of a sudden like it just kind of got dropped, and this general got put in charge of something else. And so the MUFON had asked the Congress members that were present, like, why would we have a president trying to bring up Space Marines if there wasn't a threat? like, why would we need to have, trained space marines? And the congressman just kind of looked at the MUFON people and said, yeah, there's really something going on. We actually do have space marines. I can vouch for that. And just kind of, went on. I'm like, what?
I mean, we're talking about thousands of pages, hundreds, maybe even hundreds of thousands of pages here of documents. I mean, there's no telling what's in here. And there are stuff that still kept classified for, United States protection, but this is the stuff. If this is stuff they've released, can you imagine what's in there that they haven't released?
Yeah.
But it also brings back the fact, that Uri Geller, I mean, they're coming right out and saying he was part of this, and you almost got to give credit to Uri Geller now when he says that he was part of something now, because he was probably known as most people thought he was a kook when he brought this stuff up about remote viewing and stuff. Now you kind of wonder if what he said before, if that stuff's true. That whole 9, that had something to do with Uri Geller.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
and they also mentioned how the assassination of JFK, all that information is supposed to be coming out sometime soon, because it's been the 50-year mark since it was all classified, that they have to now declassify it.
Yeah, we'll see if that happens, because who knows. But I kind of probably will look more into this CIA stuff and see what also online, so people can point me towards information. But just seeing that they were using the remote viewing, and also makes you wonder about the stuff that Ed Dames says as well. So,
right.
I mean, he says he was part of this program, and now they're coming out and saying, yeah, they've used this program. So Ed Dames isn't. Maybe he isn't as crazy as most people made him out to be. I do hate his doom and gloom stuff when he does his doom and gloom stuff, because that seems a little fake, because he's been saying for like 15 years now that, well, we're almost on the end of the world and it's almost here and we're still here every year. We're going to have this global kill shot and it's going to destroy everything, and the United States isn't going to be there. But now, well, you can see what stuff is going on with Trump. Maybe people are very doom and gloomy about that. So, I mean, maybe we won't be a superpower if something goes wrong. Who knows? But we're not getting political. I'm just saying that's just.
I thought you were saying Ed Gaines, and I was like, fuck, Rob, that guy's a psycho nut. And you're just like, yeah, maybe he was onto something, killing little boys and dressing up like a clown.
What? Ed Gaines.
Yeah, I thought you said Gaines. I was like, what in the Sam hell? Oh, good.
I thought his name was Gaines.
Potato, tomato. Who's counting? Yeah, that's crazy stuff. So we can thank this guy who went to Congress every day like some kind of paranormal Avon lady, and finally just got to him and got the information. They're
probably like, gosh, damn, he's back again. Yeah. Oh my God, it's going to be such a busy day because I got to do all these files, and he's going to be here constantly. I can't sit here and play on my phone. Can we do something about this?
Yeah, there's probably a betting pool of, all right, guys, 1 week tops. And some guy in maintenance is like, I'm going to give it a year and 3 days. That man's a rich man now. Very rich man. Well, I guess I'll take it over from here. And like I said before, this first little bit here was inspired by my cousin and some Facebook stuff she posted. But have you guys ever heard of Morgellons Disease?
Yes, I have.
Morgellons syndrome?
I honestly think it's a bunch of poppycock.
It could very well be. I'm just giving you the facts, Rob. Don't shoot the messenger. So, Morgellons disease
You mean alternative facts.
What?
You mean alternative facts.
Oh, God. That guy. So, Morgellons disease basically is a controversial, or some people say poorly misunderstood, disease, in air quotes, where thread-like fibers appear under your skin. Patients can feel like they have something crawling, something biting, or stinging them on or under their skin. Medical experts say that Morgellons is a physical illness, although now there's some suggestions saying it's more of a psychosis. They call it a delusional parasitosis, in which the person thinks parasites have infected their skin and are burrowing underneath or burrowing out from underneath. Your doctor can call it an unexplained dermopathy, in which the skin condition occurs with a lesser-known reason. Other medical professionals have dubbed it as the fiber disease. Basically, you start to develop sores on your skin, and as you start picking them and digging at them, kind of like, maybe like a chicken pox, maybe picking pox if you're a meth addict, and you start then pulling out little fibers, little strings and different fibers out of your skin. Sometimes they can poke up out of your skin. Some of the symptoms these people experience is the feeling of bugs crawling all over their skin, burning and stinging sensations under their skin, intense itching, skin sores that appear suddenly and heal very slowly, and sores that leave very red, hyperpigmented scars, and of course, thread-like fibers coming out of your skin. So, the CDC has kind of inserted here that they also have done some analysis of these skin fibers from Morgellons disease, and they're showing up as nothing more than cotton fibers typically found in clothing or bandages, t-shirts, or other man-made fibers that have just got embedded into your skin, kind of like a splinter. And then, of course, your skin reacts, your body tries to push it out, you pick on it and realize, holy crap, I've got a magic carpet coming out of my arm. The CDC also says that the skin sores seem to be the result of long-term picking, ergo that's why they don't heal up. They say, we are unable to conclude based on the study whether this is an unexplained dermopathy representing new conditions or it's an actual disease. It has long been proposed by those who use the term Morgellons or wider recognition of the existing condition that this could really just be a delusional parasitosis. The results of the CDC study have been archived and no longer updated. The CDC does not plan to do any further studies on this matter. So basically what Rob said is, poppycock. As far as treatments go for Morgellons, there are no known cures for Morgellons. Treating it like any other medical or...
Because it doesn't exist.
Right. Treating any medical or...
The treatment is you go up to the person and you slap them in the face and you say, stop acting crazy.
A team of medical researchers at the Mayo Clinic also recommend that patients that have these symptoms should undergo psychiatric evaluations. So there you go. Who gets Morgellons disease, Preston? That's what you were wondering, right? In response to scattered reports, the CDC, working together with several other health care agencies, have investigated into the condition and discovered that in California, Texas, and Florida, most of the patients seem to be middle-aged white women. Oh
my God, maybe they got it from the pumpkin spice.
Right, it's pumpkin spice latte syndrome. So, yeah, basically people are having the phenomenon occur where they feel like they're having strange fibers and tubers coming out of their skin. In reality, it was probably just some dust bunnies or belly button lint or something like that. But the reason why I bring this up is it directly leads into the phenomenon of alien implants.
See, I've actually read reports on Morgellons disease where, like, the fibers, like, they did test on the fibers, and they were, like, multicolored fibers, and they came back inconclusive or unknown, like they weren't just cotton fibers.
Uh-huh.
And that's what led people to believe that these were, like, something extraterrestrial or government experiment. So either, those claims are poppycock or there's more to it, like Sean said.
Right. So, yeah, what I'm getting at is it's not always supposedly just cotton fibers from, terry cloth or whatever. Some patients say the fibers are maybe metallic, or sometimes they're plastic. Sometimes they're almost like a filament or some kind of like a threaded thread. That sounded dumb. Kind of like a woven thread, so it's been maybe crafted.
Fiber optics, even, one might say. So yeah, what Preston is saying, a lot of times these supposed reports in the early 90s were that these were extraterrestrial in origin, and they weren't simply just, strings or fibers that got put into somebody's arm from a scrape or a cut healing funny. So, anyway, when you talk about alien implants, you have to bring up the name Roger Leir. Dr. Roger Leir is a pioneering surgeon into the, I guess you'd say, investigation of alien implants. Mm-hmm. He was I knew I was going to mess up this fucking word. He's a plastic surgeon.
No, he wasn't a plastic surgeon. He was a foot surgeon. What's the proper word? Podiatric?
Podiatrist.
He wasn't a podiatrist. He was a podiatric surgeon. And also a ufologist. That one's easier to say. Best known for the investigation of alien implants. Leir appeared frequently on television shows and talk shows. He was oftentimes on Coast to Coast with Art Bell and George Norrie.
Now, he's also deceased now, correct?
He passed away in 2014, back in March 14th, 2014. So yeah, he has passed away since then. But yeah, he appeared on Coast to Coast and as well on I think Whitley Strieber's show that he had with Art Bell called Dreamland.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, already you're getting some red flags because we all know that Whitley Strieber is not reliable. to put it nicely. Some of his stuff is really great. We're going to be getting into a lot of Strieber stuff in the next couple episodes, but over the past 15 years, Dr. Leir has pursued a quest for the knowledge within this field with great intensity. As a result, he is the medical consultant for the International Mutual UFO Network. He has also spent past time as a state section director for Ventura and Santa Barbara counties. So you could pretty much say that Dr. Leir is one of the world's most forerunning experts on discovering physical evidence for alien implants, and also in the study of ufology. Now, he and his surgical team have performed 15 surgeries recorded and allegedly taken out 16 separate distinct objects or implants out of people's bodies. Now, here's what's weird about these things. They have been scientifically investigated by some very prestigious labs, including the Los Alamos National Labs, the New Mexico Tech, the SEAL Laboratories, Southwest Labs, the University of Toronto, York University, and the University of California at San Diego. So, it's not just the case of this guy, in his garage doing surgeries, and he's just claiming all this poppycock. He's actually doing it and having these things analyzed. So, in their findings, what's weird is the comparisons of the material they pull out of people's body has been made to the similar composites of meteorite samples. In some of the tests, anomalies such as a highly magnetic iron has been found without crystalline forms, combinations of crystalline materials mixed with common metals, the growth of biological tissue in or around or inside of metallic substances, as well as isotopic ratios that are not of this world. Many implants even send off radio frequencies when they test the radio frequencies, and they also apparently move on their own whenever they try to be taken out during surgery explorations.
And
so
there's actually video out there of this happening.
Yeah, there are.
Yes.
It's pretty freaky stuff. If it's real, it's a pretty freaky phenomenon.
And the video that I saw, the abductee claimed that there was something in his knee, and they did x-rays of this knee, and they found like this little black spot where something would be. And they put a Geiger meter up to it, and it started going off, like reading like a 7, and they would move down his knee, and it would go to like a 1, which is like kind of normal radiation levels.
Yeah.
They would move back up to his knee, and it would just start, skyrocketing again. And then you watch Dr. Leir go over to a camera, one of the other cameras that was filming, and the camera would give off a frequency of 10. So whatever was in his knee was giving off, something close to what a, camcorder or like, some type of equipment would be giving off. But then when they go to actually cut it out of the guy's knee, it just looks like a piece of metal, like a flake. It just looked like a shard of metal. That's all it was.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty freaky stuff. The video that I watched, it would show under a X-ray that the implant is in the guy's knee or his kneecap or his leg or wherever. And as soon as they'd go to cut open the leg, it wouldn't be there. And they'd take a new X-ray, and it'd be a few inches over or up or down or to the left or the right or whatever of the incision. So it's almost like the thing had known that they were coming for it, and it was trying to find a way to move out of the way. So, and they said what's strange, too, about some of these implants that people have is not only are the radio frequencies very bizarre, but sometimes the metal has been coated in some type of the host's organic tissue in their body. Sometimes it's just kind of like muscle tissue has been grafted to it. Sometimes skin has been reported to be kind of woven around it. So it's almost trying to make it to where the foreign body will be non-rejected by the host body because it, basically thinks it's just part of the body just floating around. So if that's real, it's pretty freaking strange and bizarre.
You remember the episode on X-Files where Dana had found that alien implant and she had it in a little vial?
Yeah.
And she was at the grocery store and she ran it across the scanner and it started like bleeping up all these different like numbers and everything, like almost like a UPC.
Right.
Dr. Leir, they had contacted him when they were writing that episode from his research, and based off the information and the video footage that he had, that's how they came up with that storyline for Dana Scully.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Really? That's interesting. Yeah. I thought about him as I was reading this. Do you know he also starred in the remake of Witch Mountain?
No.
Yeah, he was featured in that movie too. Little known fact. So,
wow.
Yeah, so I mean, in all seriousness, he was a pretty serious surgeon. He took his job, very professionally. And there was a quote that was released here. The most famous quote about him says, "The world says there's no evidence of alien existence, but Dr. Leir was one of those showing the evidence of the capabilities of the aliens or extraterrestrials. Dr. Leir cared most about the circumstances that the people he worked with were living under and tried and did help. How many people can say that? How many can that be said for?" Sounds like he's a pretty serious guy, and I mean, if you got this board-certified surgeon doing all this kind of stuff, I'd say it's a pretty legitimate operation.
He is definitely a loss to the UFO community.
Yeah, that's very true.
He has passed. We don't know what he was pulling out, but it just seems like something strange was being pulled out of people's bodies, and it just, unless people were putting it in themselves or something like that as a joke, but it just seemed like I don't know. We don't know what happened, and we may never know now that he's passed.
So I came across this story about Dr. Leir. It was probably early 2009. MUFON got a call from an abductee, and he was in the area. So they kind of, as a kind of like a, "Hey, do you want to come with us? It'd be kind of cool to have you along." And they walk into this lady's house, and they go to the bedroom where she had claimed that she was abducted out of the bedroom, and they're kind of running all these like blue lights across the wall, and they come across this section of drywall where you see these like 3 or 4 fingerprints, and the shape of the fingerprints look like what would come off a gray alien.
Uh-huh.
And when they shut the black light off, you could actually see this oily substance, like whatever had touched that wall had this weird kind of oil-like substance on its skin. So it was reported that Dr. Leir just kind of got out like a utility knife and was just like, "Hey, I'm going to cut out this section of drywall," and just kind of started cutting out this lady's drywall. And then it was like, "Okay, thanks, guys. See ya." And took the drywall with them so that whenever he went to these...
Right.
Yeah, whenever he went to these conferences, he'd pull out this piece of drywall, he would shine the blue light or black light over it, and you would see all the fingerprints. And so he kind of basically left MUFON there to go patch up this lady's wall when they got done. And I just, I read that story and it just made me laugh because I'm like, this guy just fucking cuts out a piece of wall like it's nothing. And but the actual documentary that I watched, they actually put the black light over this thing, and the fingerprints look really eerie. They look like they would come from a gray alien. And it wasn't too far after that he was in Turkey that he actually videotaped a UFO. And when they zoomed in on it, when you're looking at it, you can actually see what looks like 3 gray aliens inside the cockpit of this UFO.
No shit.
Yeah.
That's really strange. Well, it's kind of funny how, things, you start researching, go down strange rabbit holes, and everything's kind of connected in the end. Dr. Leir, his 2 most famous cases he ever studied was, like you just mentioned, the one in Turkey. And then there was another case that he actually did an investigation on. So this is one of my favorite stories, and I've been elusively tracking this thing down. It's been my white whale for a long time now, and it was a story I watched on an old episode of Sightings. Do you guys remember Sightings? It was back on like Sci-Fi or maybe even Fox back in the day. I think I was like in middle school.
Oh my God, yes, I do remember that now.
Hell, I may even have been in grade school back then. But yeah,
nope, never.
It was kind of like a paranormal news channel that you could turn on, about every Sunday night from 6 to 7 or 7 to 8. And it was about ghosts and aliens and all this cool, kooky stuff. But yeah, they had this story, and it was called something like The Devil in Brazil or The Brazilian Devil or something like that. And yeah, I've been tracking this thing down for a long time, and coincidentally, Dr. Leir actually had some investigation that he did and contributed to the Brazilian Devil story. So as luck would have it, everything kind of came together. Maybe it was a singularity, who knows? But yeah, I discovered that this story basically just kind of gets interwoven into Dr. Leir. So let me tell you a little bit about this. Let me set the mood here for you.
It's your white whale.
So in Brazil, in a small town called Varginha, it's about midnight on January 20th, 1996. The North American Air Defense Command contacts the Brazilian counterpart known as the Integrated Center for Air Defense and Air Traffic Control, and it warns them of an oncoming UFO going down on the southern part of the state they're in. This information is also leaked coincidentally by a Brazilian Air Force soldier and also an employee on the radar facility on the Air Force Base 4, Comar. Now fast forward to about 1:30 a.m. On a small farmland nearby, Augusta and Eurico Rodriguez are rudely awakened during their sleep around 1:30 a.m. to the sound of frightened animals running across their farmland. They open the window to discover cattle, pigs, and other farm animals are running from one side of the pasture to the other, supposedly being chased by something, it might appear. Looking up to the sky, they see a silent UFO. They see a silent UFO with no lights, no fire, coming down, currently coasting about 5 meters above the ground. They describe the UFO as being submarine-shaped or like a minibus. As it flies over, it's trembling like a curtain, and it's emitting a smoke or a fog as it descends down from about 5 meters and reportedly crashes in the woods nearby. The Rodriguez couple's farm is located off of the coffee district located about 6 miles northwest of the town of Varginha, midway between Varginha and the Tres Caracos. Within hours of the UFO crashing, emergency departments receive many phone calls reporting strange creatures running throughout the small town. Now, normally they would think this is just a good laugh being had by some drunkards or kids or pranksters. Unfortunately for them, throughout the next couple hours, the reports get stronger and stronger and more frequent. After deciding the phone calls may not just be the work of some drunkard or some kids trying to play practical jokes or partying too much, the local fire department is dispatched because the local fire department in Brazil is actually part of the military, required by law to respond to any kind of distress signal or rescue mission. To the utter surprise of the men, they find the source of the strange reports. As they approach a small area where people had reportedly seen the creature, they walk upon a small humanoid-looking person who is huddled into a bush. It looks like they're dazed and confused, scared, but also injured and easily taken and captured by the search party. They report that this creature had 3 protrusions coming out of the top of its head, like short horns, and big glowing red eyes. They say it also had long arms, short legs, and big feet. Witnesses nearby who saw the apprehension say that during the apprehension, the creature emitted a very loud, buzzing noise upon being captured. They say 3 military trucks then showed up, the creature was packed into a metal shipping container, and then placed on one of the 3 military trucks that had shown up. Witnesses say they do not know which direction the creature went from there because all 3 trucks took a different direction upon leaving the crash site. Unfortunately, this would not be the only encounter that the small town in Brazil would have with these strange creatures. Whatever the creature was, it was not alone. Later that very day, 3 girls, Liliane, Valkyra, and Andrade, were walking home after a day's work. About midday, they took a shortcut through the woods and discovered another one of these creatures, apparently injured or hurt, huddled beside a bush. They described the creature again as being about 3 feet tall, large head, oval eyes, burning red, with 3 horns. Upon being scared senseless, they decided to race home and tell their mother what they saw. As they kick open the front door and they run up to one of the girls' houses, they scream, "Mama, Mama, we've seen the devil." At that point, the girl's mother decided to go immediately where they saw the creature and see if she could see the thing for itself. Upon arriving to the spot, the creature had been gone, but there was some disturbed brush and evidence of something being in the area. There were footprints left in the dirt and also a strong smell of ammonia in the air. It was not the end of the creature sighting still. Many more would be reported. There were reports of as many as 7 different creatures that day throughout the small town. One was supposedly taken to a small regional hospital before being transferred to a larger facility. Reports say the creature was escorted by military personnel. At least one of the creatures expired during the transport and died, and was taken for autopsy to the University of Campinas. Reportedly, 2 others were taken to the University of Sao Paulo for examination. During the autopsy process, many photos and videos were taken, however, they would be confiscated by military personnel later on. Official eyewitness descriptions of the creature were as follows: 3 to 4 feet tall, dark brown, hairless skin, covered in a thin, oily substance. Heads were triangular shaped, large, with 3 short horns on top, and huge red eyes that were vertically oval and burning red. A few weeks after the events that occurred on January 20th, Marco Eli Charisse, a 23-year-old policeman who was involved in the investigation, died. Supposedly, he had fallen ill after the effect of coming in contact with one of the creatures. The press began a relentless search for many more details in the case, and 2 of the girls involved started asking for money or monetary compensation for their testimonies and interviews. The mother of one of the girls, Miss Helenia, states that she was offered a very fair sum of money by 4 unknown men dressed in cream-colored Armani suits. This time, however, the monetary gain was to silence the testimony, not solicit it. They also stated that they would be back. They cannot hide the truth, but they would return. When questioned by the press, the military, the fire department, the police, and many eyewitnesses say they denied any knowledge or ever seeing any of the aliens or the spacecraft itself. This response did not come as a surprise, though. Several reports of UFOs were made during this period, and in question, it seems to be the strange beings were probably the occupants of the flying craft. There's also a possible connection to the Chupacabra monster, who many report being in the area at the same time. Now, I don't think that's possible. I don't think chupacabras are flying UFOs. Maybe they do. That's not for me to decide. However, it does seem kind of funny that that's what they would immediately go to. However, I suppose if that's kind of your urban legend, maybe that's what you think. Holy shit, these must be Chupacabra or the devil. Now, the thing I thought was one of the most peculiar facts about this story that I remember the most from the TV show was one of these creatures supposedly stumbled and stood at the outlying fence of a local zoo. And supposedly zookeepers report a very sickening ammonia smell coming from the direction of the creature. And they said it never attempted to attack the animals. It more or less just kind of trolled the fence line, kind of reaching through the fence at various points, almost like it couldn't quite understand what a fence was. They said a couple weeks after the devil had disappeared, many of the animals in the enclosures it visited had passed away from unknown health conditions. So I thought that was kind of strange too. Maybe the devil was the reason why the animals died. Maybe they were looking for something to blame their careless animal caretaking skills. Who knows? So. Yeah, that was one of my favorite stories from sightings, and I was very, very shocked to discover this actually kind of was tied into old Dr. Leir, so kind of neat. Unfortunately, there may be a reason or an explanation as to exactly what the devil was. See, it has been reported that back in the 90s in Varginha, there was a supposed deformed homeless man who would kind of troll the streets throughout the day, known as Little Luis. He was described as a local hobo with disabilities who would oftentimes be hunched over in the corners of buildings or nearby brush and shrubbery. A lot of times he was very dirty and wet and would often times cover himself in mud, just caked on a bunch of mud and would just kind of waller around through the streets and people's yards. So there could potentially be your answer right there. Maybe Little Luis may have been confused for being the devil or an alien. But what I think is kind of strange is, why would you think that you saw him 8 different times in 8 different parts of the small town? So who knows?
Local hobo covered in mud.
It could be that the animals just, that story didn't happen, so they're basically using that as to make the story more entertaining.
Yeah, could be.
But it sounds like, it doesn't sound like aliens to me. It sounds like the hobo covered in mud. Especially with the girls finding him in a bush. But, who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just happy I found that story again. Made my day.
So, I was looking at Reddit, and they had a thread that just happened to pop up a little bit ago. The most paranormal thing that you'd ever seen. And I just seen this story, and I thought, this is a pretty cool story. I'm going to give it an upvote. So, this is by a throwaway account. So take that with a grain of salt. But a friend and I were driving up a mountain road to a camping site to join a bunch of our other friends at night. We were sure we were on the right road, and we knew how long the drive should be. But the drive just seemed to be taking forever. So long that we started to question if we were somehow turned around. We both started feeling uneasy. Though at first, neither one of us voiced this to the other one. We kept passing owls in the trees along the side of the road. I mean dozens and dozens of owls. I spent a lot of time in the mountains, and I think it was lucky to see one, but we saw dozens. All in the trees on the side of the road staring at us. When my friend had to stop to take a piss because both of us had pretty much blurted out how unsettled we were and how this didn't feel right at all, and neither of us wanted him stepping away from the vehicle, he stopped as fast as he could and pretty much pissed right out the door with the vehicle running and the lights on, and then took off again like it was some sort of race. Then when we got there, everyone wondered how we were so late. We did too. We told my father about it later, and he commented on how supposedly alien abductions often remember seeing owls. I'd swear to the end of my days that I don't remember a single break in my consciousness on that trip, but I have no idea how it took us so long and can't describe just how wrong the feel of everything was. I've had bears walk by 20 feet in front of me, elk wake me up by brushing past me in the tent in the middle of the night, but felt nothing like this before or since. I thought that was...
Sorry, I fell asleep. What happened?
I thought that was a pretty interesting story.
No, it is. A lot of times with alien abduction stories, one of the telltale signs is kind of like just an influx of owl sightings in your area.
Mm-hmm.
Really big fucking owls with red eyes.
Yeah, really big fucking owls.
Well, I mean, he talked about, he rarely would see one in the mountains, because it sounds like this is an area they travel before, and he just said they see dozens of them watching from the trees, and that almost seems like, you would see like maybe a whole bunch of them standing in a room while they're doing procedures on you. I don't know.
Right. Well, your classic grays are often depicted as having as having those big, round black eyes, big oval-shaped or sometimes owl-shaped heads. And if you want to talk about screen memories, basically false memories getting imprinted on your head, in your head, a lot of times it's owls. I think in the movie Communion with Whitley Strieber, there's that scene that Christopher Walken is going through the cabin and he opens up the son's closet. And in the closet, there's like an owl, a stuffed owl or an owl pillow. And when he opens the closet and sees it, it just scares the living shit out of him. And he can't understand why it scared him so bad.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a buddy of mine, he was telling me the story. A friend of his had called him who lives up in like Minnesota or somewhere. And he's like, yeah, man, things are going well. It's really weird. Like outside my window, I live upstairs in the second story. And like I've got this light post outside my room a couple feet out. And there's just been like a bunch of owls. Like I see them in the trees. I see them on the light posts and the lamp posts, and they're always there just watching. And my buddy's like, I'm not trying to scare you, man, but you should probably research some alien abductions and owl stories because it sounds like you're going to be fucked. Yeah, I don't know. So is that a real account, Rob, or is that just a...
I mean, this is a guy on Reddit. I mean, take it for what it's worth, but... I don't know. It almost to me, the descriptions. It doesn't sound like it's a very salacious story. It doesn't look like he just put it out there to make it up.
Right. It wasn't really hammed up at all, so that was nice.
Yeah, it wasn't like, well, then we did this. The only thing was kind of funny was the whole taking a piss out the window because that seems a little odd.
Yeah, I mean, you got to piss.
Yeah, man. I mean, but the whole thing about the road seeming longer than it was. Seems a lot like a lot of abduction stories where you kind of drone out and you just feel like something's taking longer than whatever, and you're like, you're missing time because basically you're like, why am I on this road so long? I should be out of this car. When in reality, you're probably already out of the car and on a ship and you still think you're driving.
Right, right. That happened to me when I was driving to Nebraska from Kansas one time, but it wasn't aliens. It was just the fact that Nebraska is just one giant freaking cornfield.
This coming from the guy from Kansas.
That's true.
Yeah. So this actually comes from a UFO expert from Mexico named Jaime Musan. And he has done a lot of research lately in the increasing UFO activity in Mexico, especially around like volcanoes. And he pointed out how, like, when the volcanoes down there are active, you see videos of these UFOs flying in and out. But then when the volcanoes are not active, you hardly see any UFO reports. But his team had captured a metal spear that had killed a cow when it crashed the Earth on December 30th, 1994. So imagine one night, late at night, there's like this... objects sparking across the sky. It looks like a meteor or something, and then bam, right into a cow. Farmer goes out there, his prized, Betsy's just, big giant hole in the ground, and they find this what looks like a cannonball. Jaime and his team went down there and got a hold of it, and Roger Leir, oddly enough, was with an American group that was down there not too long ago before he passed away. And they'd put a sample of it under an electron microscope, and they found that, yes, the actual metal was titanium, but upon putting it under the electron microscope, they found that it was made up of what looked like fiber optic threads. So there's just millions and millions of these little thread-like objects that were coming out of the metal, holding it together. And it should be noted that earlier in 2013, 2014, there was a scientist that was sending up weather balloons to study the outer mesosphere. And he kept having these sensors damaged, and when he would bring them back down, he would notice these little pits. And eventually, after having all these damage, he put them underneath a microscope and found these small titanium balls. And they extracted this liquid from those balls that had DNA-like substance in it. So, could be a connection there.
Huh, interesting.
Titanium balls floating around in the mesosphere, titanium balls killing cows.
Man alive. Damn those titanium balls.
Man alive. Damn those titanium balls.
Well,
AC/DC had it wrong because they said they had the biggest balls of them all.
AC/DC had everything wrong. And on that note, I think it's a good time to cut her here. So, boys, what do you want to plug?
Well, normally I plug Oh Indeed, our podcast from our buddies Big Steve and Brady, Man on the Street. Yeah, and I also said that if anybody left us a review that I would read it next show. And it just so happens that we have a review, and I'm going to read it real quick. This is titled, 3 Cool Dudes and Some Spooky Shenanigans. I love paranormal. I wish I had the patience and time to research these topics, but these guys bring me all the details. They consistently keep up to date with Rob's sex robots, Preston's uncovering Tumblr darkest secrets, and Sean having fun in state parks. Pixelated Paranormal is the ice in my tea. Thank you.
Who left that?
I like the sign off. It's the ice in my tea.
Yeah. So thank you.
Oh, it's good stuff. I'd like to plug that the Parapod is back for season 3 right now. 2 really, really funny British comedians taking their stab at the old paranormal podcasting, and it's really good if you like it. Barry Dodds and Ian Boldsworth. It's great. Season 3 is going to be about conspiracies, so check that out for your listening pleasure.
All right, and I want to just hit on Pixelated Radio, which is our video game podcast. You can catch that usually on Sunday evening, every other Sunday. So I hope you guys... What the fuck?
Nothing.
I hope you guys enjoy that. Also, yeah, I guess that's kind of it.
Huh. I'll be damn. Well,
we already mentioned Steven's Oh Indeed, right? We mentioned that.
Yeah.
And
that.
Mark's podcast. God damn it. I forgot.
Fuck, man.
Mark,
I got your back, buddy. So don't you forget that.
Pixelated Sausage Cast. So listen to that. That's Mark doing his own shenanigans, mostly talking about anime. But, yeah. Cool.
Anybody watch anything good? We checked out Snowden tonight. That was pretty awesome.
Man, Jeffrey's got me hooked on Sherlock because we watched season 4 on the PBS on their little BBC masterpiece segment, and so I've been going back through Netflix and then watching seasons. It's an amazing show.
Pretty good.
I don't know if I talked.
Watch Sherlock.
I don't know if I talked about this, but I highly recommend the show Travelers on Netflix. I would definitely recommend that show. I really liked it a lot.
I had one more movie I watched, and I can't for the life of me think of what the... Oh, yeah. We went out and saw Split. M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong's new movie.
Shyamalan.
Shyamalan. M. Night Shyamalan. His new movie Split, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So if you enjoy his movies, if you like movies like Signs and Unbreakable and The Sixth Sense, Lady in the Water.
Lady in the Water.
Lady in the Water was great. Check out Split. It was good. I enjoyed it. Most definitely. I'd say he redeemed himself. I never think he really lost it. Some people do, but I'd say if you think he lost it, the boy's back. So take that or wind it back.
Is it a spooky show? Because spooky, is it like horror or anything? I mean, is it like hardcore horror? Because I don't give a shit.
It's more like a suspense. It's a suspense film, suspense horror. There's not a lot of gore. You know, people aren't getting their heads cut off. This is what I like about M. Night Shyamalan is the fact that the guy gives you a lot of throwbacks to. I mean, camera work. It reminds me of The Shining, but it's a really nice homage to like Alfred Hitchcock. You know, a lot of horror elements, but not gore. The guy relies on a lot of old tricks from old timey horror, to where a lot of the scares are in your own mind because you're working yourself up for something so terrifying, and then you kind of help add to that suspense. So I really, really enjoyed it.
All right.
One movie of his that everybody hated that I like was The Happening.
Man,
you are the only one.
Yeah, I'm going to cut that out, Preston. How dare
we don't
you?
Want that.
How dare you say that?
Are you trying to steal something from my house? No! I still remember that line. Because that line was like, that was the least convincing fucking thing I've ever heard on this planet. No!
No, you've never watched, I think, what was it, the second or third Resident Evil movie? When Mila Jovovich has that battle in the cemetery with all the zombies, and that one chick, the dark-haired chick's like, "You're good." Or what she say? She's like, "I am good, but I am not that good." It's like fucking Ed and Eddie recited her lines to her. Oh, it's terrible. Terrible. Well, my dog's snoring, which means it's time to call this. So, everybody, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you next time around.
Later.
The cast at Pixelated Paranormal would like to thank you for listening to this week's episode. Pixelated Paranormal is here to tell you tales of the fantastical, the strange, the unknown. Tales that will move you a little further down the paranormal highway. If you'd like to share your own listener story, we would love to hear it. You have two ways. One, email us at pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com. Again, that's pixelatedparanormal@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, we have that set up too. Dial us at 707-523-4263. Again, that's 707-523-4263. We'd really love to hear from you. Again, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Pixelated Paranormal, your guide to the unusual and the strange.
What happened?
I'll tie it off with the balls at the end. Yeah, it would dry out and shrivel up,
Uh-oh.
Like a robo snake.